Welcome to the Seller Roundtable e-commerce coaching and business strategies with Andy Arnott and Amy Wees.
So what's Kevin King's hack on finding a good 3PL or warehousing facility? Because that has been a struggle for people.
It's hard because a lot of them, because of the pandemic, like you said, they're inundated right now. They're like, they have more business than they can handle. I know there's a big one in Michigan. I think e-fulfillment or e-com fulfillment's the name. It's one that a lot of people were using. And I contacted them for one of my companies back in the summer. And they said, no problem, but just need to understand, if you ship us something, it's going to sit in a trailer for 2 weeks before we can even check it in to handle it. And I was like, geez, I talked to ShipBob and ShipWire and a bunch of the other ones, and it's difficult. And so you got to get referrals from someone else that's got something, or if you know a buddy, another Amazon seller that set up his own kind of warehouse, maybe you can go with him because they have a clue on the Amazon side. It's difficult. It's call around. You got to find someone that you're comfortable with. That's the fees can eat your lunch really fast. I mean, when we run out of stock, when I'm launching a new product on Amazon, we have to start FBM because we ship in the product, and I'm not going to wait till it gets shipped, the FBA gets checked in to start selling. So we start selling FBM, and it's pretty much at a loss, but it starts the ranking going. Then the FBM gets checked in, those first 200, and then usually we sell through those really fast. So it switches back to FBM, and while we're sending the next FBA in, so this is the cycle that goes for about 2 months of back and forth, back at FBA, FBM, before you finally get a high enough number on FBA, what they'll let you ship in to where you can actually get ahead of the curve and pretty much stay FBA most of the time, unless you just have a huge spike. So it's a challenge. So finding those companies is difficult. It's difficult.
But it's worth it. We do the same thing when we launch. It's like FBM immediately, follow it up, send them into FBA, keep selling FBM, keep selling FBA, just keep on pushing it through until we're kind of on a steady slope, right? So yeah.
Most people, the way you do that, I mean, my counters is an exception. I had to create a whole new ASIN to get around this classification. But in most cases, what you can do is, if most people don't realize how you can have both FBM and FBA on the same listing, is create your listing. Say it's an FBA listing when you're creating it, and then just go in there into the Seller Central on the back end, click on, when it has a list of all your SKUs, click on the little box, and over on the right-hand side where it says edits or whatever, you pull that down. One of those is called add a condition. And so what you want to do is you want to pull that little pull down and say add a condition. It'll pop up a little screen. It'll ask you for a different SKU. So you assign it a different SKU. And so like what we do is, if my SKU is a hat 01, the one that's a FBA is hat 01-FBA. The other one's hat 01-FBM or whatever. So you give it a different SKU, and it keeps the same ASIN, keeps the same reference, the same listing, everything. And then you add a condition, and the condition is just add another one new. Yeah. And that's pretty much all you have to hit, those two things. And then what happens is another listing will pop up. It'll copy everything over from your original, and then they'll switch back and forth automatically. So as you run out of one, or as you run out of FBA, it'll automatically switch to the FBM. And when the FBA comes back in stock, it'll automatically switch back, assuming the pricing. So what I do is on the FBM, I price it like $1 or $2 more, just to make sure that it doesn't actually reverse. And then
because if you're more than like 2% of the last buy box price, then it'll rotate. But if you're otherwise it'll rotate. So if you don't want it to rotate, you need to price it significant more than 2% of the last buy box price. Right. Yeah, we do the same thing. The only thing we do differently is we start our SKU with MF or FBA, because it's, that way I'm like, oh, okay, I know which one.
On the left-hand side, doesn't truncate off or something. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we do the exact same thing. The other thing I like that you mentioned, Kevin, is, adding a few bucks. People don't realize, but nowadays, especially, well, depending on the size of the product, but almost always now, FBA actually beats merchant fulfilled because their shipping prices are so low. It never used to be that way, but now that, Postal Service and all these other companies have started to raise their rates, a lot of times your FBM products, even with the discount in fees from Amazon, are more expensive to ship. So we always make that a little bit more expensive too, like you said, number one, to keep the FBA buy box or the buy box on the FBA offer, but also to just get that little extra money to cover some of the added expenses, labor, customer service, all the stuff that you get when you do FBA. So I
But
love
you have
that.
to remember too, though, on the flip side of that, most people don't think it. You have a cost to send in an FBA. So let's say Amazon's fulfillment cost is, like, numbers easy, is $5. Not their 15% commission, but just the pick and pack fee um, is $5. And maybe if you're shipping it merchant fulfilled, usually, like you said, you're not going to have the economies of scale. Maybe your cost is $7, just to send it out, plus some labor or whatever. It's called $7. So there's a $2 difference. So you immediately think, well, FBA is definitely cheaper. But you got to remember, depending on how you send that stuff into FBA, you had a cost to send it in, either on your own dime or FBA, Amazon's dime. You probably, if they ship from a 3PL, they probably charge you a per case price to pick each one. You got to factor all that back in too. So at the end of the day, you might not be as different as you think. It depends on your size and weight.
Well, yeah, I was going to say majority of our products are really small. So
yeah, we have some stuff. Yeah, we have some bigger stuff. So you have to, but even regardless of that, people trust the FBA way over they do the FBM. People are getting more comfortable with FBM now because of the pandemic. But like this calendar thing that I have, they could go. They're buying it. So I mean, in droves. But if that was FBA, it would. I know it would be stronger. But yeah, you got to factor in. A lot of people forget some of those costs. And the only time merchant fulfilled usually is cheaper right now is if you're selling, jewelry or something like lightweight that can just go in a little small bubble envelope and go out for $1 or $2, first class mail or something. But pretty much everything else FBA beats it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we kind of had a similar situation. We have a holiday product for Christmas and Hanukkah and all that's sells like crazy. I mean, it's we make like 80% of our yearly sales with that one product during this time of year. But what was interesting this year is that we had to actually send a case every day because of the stupid fulfillment limits.
Yeah.
So every day they'd be like, oh, you can send 300 more. Oh, you can send 300 more, because we were selling 300 to 500 a day. So whatever we'd sell, we'd have to the next day then replace that inventory. And as we got close to the holiday, all that stuff got backed up, and we backed it up with FBM as well. But like you said, Kevin, people trust Prime now, especially during the holidays. They want their stuff to make sure that it gets there on time, if it's a gift. So that's always a fun one. But the good thing is even though it's a big holiday product, can be sold year round. So like we'll probably market it for Valentine's Day and Father's Day and Mother's Day and all the other holidays, because it works really well for kind of all of that. But it's an interesting thing.
Speaking of that too, one thing like those limits, when Amazon says you go into inventory and restock inventory, and it says you can send in like you said 300 today, that's dynamic throughout the day. So it might be 301 if you're checking it right now, but you check it tonight, it might go to 206, and then it can go to zero. From some of mine, they shut them all down for like a week to zero. I think Amazon must said we're at our capacity. We need to slow this down. So zero for a bunch of people for like a week or two there, November, early December.
Yep.
So what you got to be on if you're playing this game to manage your inventory, you got to be on top of this. And as soon as you see that's full case quantities or some economical, take it. And even if you don't ship it right then, you're not going to ship it for a week. Go ahead and take it from Amazon and say, create the initial shipping plan, and then come back to it later to finish it off and send it in. But I had to do that on one of my products. One day they gave me 400 and something. This is Saturday or Sunday of this week. So I took it and I was like, oh, there's no way I can ship this in for, till like Thursday or Friday. And then the next day they gave me another 300 and I took that. So make sure, it's a new cat and mouse game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly right. Like you said, that can change. And the other thing that I noticed after the holidays, because people like you and I, Kevin, caught on to that, is they're now putting limits on those shipping plans. I think it's a week or maybe it's 2 weeks. But if you dial in those shipping plans and save them kind of as a hedge, they've seen that game now too. I have to say, Amazon's getting really good at seeing how sellers are getting around some of the BS that they are putting into place. and then plugging that hole really quickly, because that came out, I think I saw it a week or two ago. But yeah, that's an excellent point. But Amazon's doing some interesting stuff, but they're driven by profit, so they're getting more and more people on every day to look at this stuff to figure out how to make more money. Going back to products, I know, Kevin, that you and Steve are doing a lot with the importing, and I know that Steve moved a lot of stuff to Vietnam and things like that. Are you still doing majority of your sourcing in China? Have you diversified that? And for the people who wanted, if so, if you're diversifying, what are some tips for people in terms of finding suppliers in other countries, like places like Vietnam, or I think India for textiles? Anything that you're doing in that space, would love to hear about.
Yeah, we have some of my stuff right now. I have Vietnam. We have some stuff made in Vietnam, some in Singapore, and some Malaysia. Um, the sourcing on that, I have partners on that actually are in Hong Kong. It's an American guy and a UK guy that have a company in Hong Kong, so that they handle all that side of it. But they have a team of people that's all they do is source. So they're handling that. Like you said, Steve Simonson has an office of 10, 15, 20 people, mostly in China, but they also coordinate all his stuff that's in other countries. You can find some of that stuff. Uh, Alibaba has some of that. Global Sources has some of that. If you do some reverse, using Panjiva or Import Genius or some of those other software tools to see what your competition, where they're sourcing from, you can find that stuff there. You can look at some trade show websites to find some of that, or you can try to get a sourcing agent if you want to do that, or use someone like Sourcify. So there's a lot of options there. I don't have a specific here's your one answer. This just depends on your situation.
Got it. Any, you're talking about launching those new FBM products, and you're saying, you said you're using two-step URLs. Are you still using two-step URLs? There's a huge debate, and there always is, about whether they still work or not. A lot of
They,
people are now saying only organic search, find, buy is working. Any other tricks that you're using right now to promote your products that you see that are working?
I use the field ASIN from helium10.com/gems. That worked for those calendars. I mean, it's hard to say, did that work, or is it just because I got 100 sales in one day with the keywords in the title? It's hard to exactly say, but I don't feel it was a waste. But if you're on a highly competitive product or something, I would tend to agree it probably has less impact than straight buys. So what's working for me now is search, find, buy. I'll use someone like Rank Bell or Ring Falcon, or people who use Rebate Key or some of those that works, and in combination with heavy PPC. So what I'll do is I'll come out with a product, and I'll go after the mid-level keywords, no big keywords. The mid-level keyword, mid and lower level keywords with a search, find, buy, and heavy PPC. I have no reviews, so obviously your conversion rate's going to be lower, but you got to start somewhere. You have that window, people call it the honeymoon period, where you need to get going. So I'll get it going. I'll do Vine reviews. I'll do the early reviewer program to try to get some of those first reviews in. And once we get to about 20, 30 reviews on a product, then we'll do another search, find, buy, and then we'll start going after the bigger keywords. Now that we have, and we'll ramp up the PPC even more. Because now, assuming that you get good reviews, if you get bad reviews, then you got to change this. But assuming you get good reviews, then that's the process, and that seems to work pretty well.
Awesome. How do you plan on hedging against some of the bigger, because now that the people know there's big money to be made on Amazon, especially since the pandemic, more, businesses have jumped on. I would love to see that stat. We don't know it yet, but Marketplace, I think it's Marketplace Pulse or something like that. I'm sure we'll have some of those numbers for us for last year. But I bet it's massive. I bet it's huge. How do the small mom and pop type sellers hedge against some of these really big brands with big money coming onto Amazon? And also the other kind of threat I see is coming from companies like Thrashio, where, they've got all these experts in there. They got all these resources where they can launch, or take brands and turn their spigot on and just destroy all these small mom and pop type Amazon businesses. Do you agree with that kind of notion? And if not, why not? And also, if you do agree, how do you think the small seller can hedge against those threats?
Well, you hedge against it by niching down into the niches. The big brands, I'm not too worried about because they don't know what they're doing. They spend a lot of money, and on the advertising side, you know, they don't care if what their ACost is. They sell branding and stuff to them, so that's a problem there where it can hurt you. But the Thracios that are combining, you know, there's like 10 of these guys now that are doing this. It's a hot thing right now. That those guys that it depends. I mean, if you're competing against one of their brands, you might be at a little bit of a competitive advantage because they have the deeper resources and the deeper pockets. But you know, sometimes you might have to lower your expectations. Let them be number one. You can be number two. You know, there's Avis and Hertz. They both do okay. So you don't have to be the best seller. It might mean you have to lower your expectations or launch a few more products to maintain or grow your business. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's something good for people to have choice. You know, as long as you can maintain those top 3, 4, 5 positions, you should, for whatever keywords you're targeting, you should be okay. I'm not overly worried about that because I know, even though they're teams, I know, at least for me, I can outmarket or outdo them in some areas.
Yeah, I always make that comparison as well. You know, if you guys want to, I don't know if they've upped their game since, but I always use Stanley Tools. Go look at some Stanley Tool listings and laugh your head off about, you know, 4-in-1 screwdriver. That's their title. So I agree with you there, but I also do think on the flip side though that they're starting to realize that market, that Amazon Marketplace and that customer base is growing so quickly. Yeah, that they are starting to hire people who know what they're doing. You know, there's starting to be some of these agencies that are coming on to help these big brands actually, you know, fix like Stanley Tools. So I definitely agree with you there. That's, you know, the way to survive on Amazon is to, you know, really niche down and also, you know, really concentrate on things that you can do that big brands can't do, right? Big brands can't pivot a product really quickly or change an accessory or change a color, or, you know, those are the kinds of things that you can do, you know, in a couple of days that, you know, in a big brand, it takes weeks or months or, you know, even years to get through all the red tape and all the bosses and the boss's boss and all that. So I completely agree with you.
One thing you can do too is you can license if you're worried about that. I mean, one of our brands we're about to launch, we have a license in the entire category on Amazon. I don't want to say which category it is, but for Body Glove, you know, the big surfing brand. So with them, we're creating the product line that will have their logo on it. We pay them a royalty, but that differentiates us. It sets us apart. So immediately, it's not here's Kevin's brand, and nobody knows Kevin's brand. What is this thing? It's a Body Glove product. So immediately, it has credibility. And then they're going to take it when we launch instead of us. I mean, we'll still do the traditional giveaway rebates and advertising and stuff, but they'll send it out to their influencers. And some of these guys have Instagram followings of 2-3 million people, these athletes, you know, Olympic athletes and different things. And they'll publicize it. And plus they have connections with all the retailers, the Nordstroms, the Macy's, the Dick's Sporting Goods, the Academies, all those kind of people. And so they'll make introductions there on the product. So we'll use Amazon as kind of like a proving ground to where we get the reviews and make sure everything's right. And then we'll take it to the stores, you know. And they came to us because for exactly what you just said is they approached us. We didn't approach them. But they wanted us because we know Amazon. And they're like, this is the best way. We could either go hire somebody for 40, 50,000, 100,000 a year. But why do that when we can just license it to someone that's already doing it? We have more incentive. They have more incentive. It's a win-win for everybody. So that I think you may see more opportunities in that too.
That's a interesting business model. I like that.
If you're selling outdoor camping equipment, just get a license with the U.S. Marines or something.
Right,
you know,
right.
That's not a hard one to get. Disney or, you know, some of the big ones are hard. You know, Disney, or, you know, it's going to take some money and they're careful. But someone like the Army or U.S. Marines or something, you know, those are easier to get. And just by sticking that on your lanterns and your backpacks and whatever, it's a differentiator.
Yeah, that's an interesting play there. You kind of segued into my next question pretty perfectly there. You mentioned influencers. Are you using social media, you know, besides influencers? Like, does your brand have its own social media presence? I assume it does, at least a basic one. How much time and effort are you putting into that, and what kind of returns are you seeing on it?
Returns are very low for the most part. We do have it. I do have a person that's doing that for 2 of our companies. I said earlier I don't have employees. I guess that's a false statement. They're not employees, but we pay someone $500 a month to take care of that for 2 of our brands, or $500 for each brand. And they're posting on Instagram and building the Facebook, and it's going okay. But does that add a lot? No. Can it? Yeah, it has potential. I think the one right now that has the most potential is Clubhouse. If you can, depending on what your brand is, you're selling, actually almost anything. Clubhouse is the hot. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but if you're not, Clubhouse is an audio only app. So everything on there is audio. There's no video. There's no chat. There's no text. Started earlier this year, like in March. I think they're up to about 1 million people right now. It's invitation only, so you got to know somebody to get in. But what's happening in there from a business point of view and a marketing and a networking point of view is nothing like I've ever seen. So I think the people that are early into this before it blows up to 1 billion people or whatever, like Facebook, are going to be whether you're selling information or products. I mean, we're going to use it for one of our brands that's eco-friendly brand. We're going to set up little rooms where people are talking about environmentally conscious type of stuff, and we'll build a passionate audience that then when we come out with a product in that line, we'll say, hey, by the way, this is the product, and we'll make connections with other influencers in there that have big Instagram followings, and instead of me having to reach out and say, we'll pay you a bunch of money, they'll be like, no, when you get your thing out, just let us know, man, we'll plug it for you. So I think anybody that's not looking at Clubhouse right now as a marketing tool for their products or their information businesses is missing a major opportunity. It's a game changer if you do it right.
Awesome. That's yeah, Amy just sent me an invite and I haven't even looked at it yet because I have so many other, things that I'm working on. I'm super deep into LinkedIn right now. And in the last few weeks have gained some serious traction. So I'm putting some time into that, but I will have to check that out because especially on the upper echelon, it seems like celebrities and promote, people big in the Amazon space, things like that are using it. So I'll have to check that out. That's an interesting platform.
The networking there, if you're in the right rooms and you do it right and you follow the right people, the way the algorithm works, it's and like you said, I'm seeing, I haven't led a room or anything yet because I've only been in there for about 10 days or so now. Like you, I don't have a lot of time, but I'm about to start doing a lot of stuff. And just some of the rooms, when I have it on as background noise, instead of listening to a podcast, I'm getting more value out of this. I was listening to something last night, totally off of the Amazon spaces, about how to grow your business to 6 figures or something. And I had like 5,000 people in this room, like 6 or 7 guys up on stage moderating. And the nuggets that they were dropping about tools to use for Facebook advertising and Instagram and building your list. And this was just like, I was like, holy cow, man, I was taking notes as well on some of what they're saying. So from a learning perspective and from a marketing perspective, I see major potential there.
Very
and
cool.
Networking.
All right. So besides Clubhouse, what else are you into right now in terms of, you mentioned, podcasts, any books, when Kevin sits down on the couch at night for you said you work all night like I do. So for the 30 minutes to an hour that you plop down on the couch at night, what are you into in terms of, learning or entertainment, things like that?
My guilty pleasure is 90 Day Fiance.
That's hilarious because
that's my relax at night.
I love 90 Day Fiance. Oh my gosh, I watch all the seasons.
My wife's fine. I think she already binged all of them. I'll walk out to the living room from my office and she's watching it. So
my wife is from Colombia, so I can relate in some ways as well. So I've been watching it since it started, like 2014, when the first season was like 4 episodes, and so I've been with it ever since. So that's my guilty pleasure, to just chill and relax.
I love it. That's great. Kevin, thank you so much for being on. I know you have to run right now, but let people know how they can get a hold of you if you want to mention any websites or things you're doing right now. You said you're up to 8 businesses, kind of like me. I'm trying to do the one thing though, right? So I'm trying to backpedal, but let people know what you're up to right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I got a bunch of stuff. The easiest way, if you want to keep up with, I mean, I don't post a whole lot there, but if anything important I post, is just follow me on Facebook. Just go to Facebook. I think my friends are tapped out. There might be somebody might have died, or I don't mean that badly, or someone went away off of Facebook. So, but usually it's close to 5,000. But you can try that. But if or just follow there. That's probably the best thing to do.
All right. Sounds good, Kevin. Thanks so much. And everybody, thank you guys so much for listening. Those of you who joined us live, we really appreciate it. If you don't know, you can watch video and get the podcast, all that good stuff. sellerroundtable.com. If you want to join us live 1 p.m. every Tuesday at sellerroundtable.com/live. If you guys haven't reviewed, subscribed, we really, really appreciate that. Amy, I think we ended in the top 5 on the seller poll for podcasts this year. With us being so fourth. Yeah,
it was a vicious battle to the end.
Yeah. So
congratulations.
So
we were listed twice again. So
oh no.
But I did reach out to Danny and I was like, hey, you want to recount these? And he was like, it's okay. I already recounted them and it didn't make a difference in the
sure. No.
Sure, Danny knows.
Yeah, no. So yeah, we really appreciate that, guys. Thank you if you voted for us, and we really appreciate that. And for the amount of time that we've been doing this podcast, I think we're teaching a lot of you guys things, and we'd love to hear from you on what you want in terms of guests and content. So thank you again, guys. Kevin, thank you so much for being with us.
Appreciate it, man.
We'll see you next time on the Seller Roundtable.
All right, thanks. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for live Q&A and bonus content after the recording at sellerroundtable.com. Sponsored by the ultimate software tool for Amazon sales and growth, sellerseo.com and amazingathome.com.